All right. How's everybody doing? This is JL, the Anti-Guru, and it is Monday. And you know how we do it. We always start with music. And I've got a special guest for you tonight, guys. Somebody that I admire, somebody that I think you definitely want to connect with tonight. His name is Lance T. Walker. I'm going to get right into it. And see here, once again, I'm not always on top of things because we want to introduce you to this gentleman. Come on, computer, piece of junk. But I want to tell you a little bit about this gentleman so you'll know why we are talking to him. Oh, well, there we go. Boom. So Sunday, I talked to you about this book, The Rise of the Ambassador, A Lost Generation Rediscovered. And he sent this book to me, and I could not put it down, guys. Sunday morning, normally I do my prayer and all this kind of stuff, getting ready for church. He sent this book to me. Once I started reading it, I couldn't stop, but I had to stop because I got to go to church to praise the Lord.
Absolutely.
But just to give you a little bit of background information about this gentleman, Lance Walker was born in November 1962 in upstate New York. He was sent as a child ambassador to integrate a total of 4 separate schools between the years of 1967 and 1976. I'm not going to go into detail about the schools he went to, but we have some similar experiences because this speaks directly to what he's talking about, the ambassador generation, which is a generation that started from, if I get it right, from 1958 to 1969.
Roundabout.
There's a lot of people who fall into this category. And I, for one thing, I thought I was a baby boomer, but after reading this book, I realized I'm in this group. So we're going to talk a little bit more about it. I wanted to bring him on so he could discuss this and give you more information and more clarity on what this is about. So Lance, appreciate you coming on with me, man. I know you're a busy guy. You got a lot
we all.
But let's jump right into it. And I'm gonna let you explain it. But before I do that, I know you're a veteran. I always want to honor veterans. Thank you for your service to this country. So I appreciate that. But tell us more about the ambassador generation and who these people are.
There are tens of millions of us, JL, and the most amazing thing about it is we don't even know we're a generation yet.
Right.
Okay, so we're working on changing that. Those of us who were born in the first part of that range that you talked about are basically told that we're the tail end of the baby boomers. Almost an afterthought, what we want doesn't count, what we did doesn't count because we weren't really part of that big giant bubble.
Right.
By the same token, those born, towards the middle and end of the 60s, they try to squeeze them into Gen X, and that doesn't work either, because they realize, no, there's something going on here. So really what it's all about is that there are tens of millions of us who we call the 60s kids, the 60s generation.
Right.
The thing that binds us together mostly is this idea that we were the integration generation. We were the people who were sent to the schools because they didn't want to bust teachers around because, teachers could just shut down and refuse to participate. Right. So they basically used us as children to shoulder the load of the integration policies that they were instituting in this country at the time. Unfortunately, though, by the time you get to the end of the 60s, the baby boom generation's leaders were basically all slaughtered right in front of their eyes.
Right.
And this is a big part of, when I hear Gen Xers and millennials and Gen Zers, expressing that they're, upset or angry with baby boomers because they didn't leave them a perfect world. Part of my hope with this information is to get them to see the price that the baby boomers paid. And how the world was before the baby boomers took it on their shoulders to try to make this a different world and a better world for all of us, of which they are huge beneficiaries.
Exactly.
They have no idea what it used to be like when you and I were kids.
No doubt.
Uh, okay, so they paid the supreme sacrifice. They watched Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy and John Kennedy literally get blown away in front of their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
On television screens.
Yeah.
Okay, and so it's no wonder that their energy drained and they kind of went underground. And by the mid 70s, a lot of them put on their dresses and suits and went to work for daddy, and all of a sudden became Reagan conservatives. And kind of forgot about all that stuff they supposedly believed in during the 60s. But those of us who were kids at the time, we got the promises of this new world that was going to be brought forward. But then by the time the 70s kicked in and the so-called silent majority put Richard Nixon in the White House, all of a sudden all that went away.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we were just kind of left there. The great new world didn't happen, and here we are. And basically what happened was we fell off the radar screen.
No doubt.
Mommy and daddy went to work. We became the latchkey kids, coming home to an empty house after school and being responsible for ourselves and not realizing that those experiences were giving us tremendous strength, tremendous abilities to deal with reality. We didn't get spoiled. Maybe we got a little spoiled with video games and stuff, but we didn't get spoiled like a lot of folks have gotten spoiled over the years. And we kind of grew up with one foot in the old school and one foot in the new. And that makes us the most powerful, the best educated generation this world has ever seen. And now is our time. Okay. We're in our mainly 50s and early 60s now. Okay. So this is our time. This is the time that the world is depending on us to achieve our mission. And the only way we can achieve our mission is if we know what it is.
So what is that mission?
Our
Let
mission, okay, our mission as ambassadors is to bring two parties together. If you think, the term ambassador, to get in between two warring parties, keep the peace, okay, and bring an entirely new and beneficial reality into being. And that's where we are. The way I express it is, or the way I like to express it is that our job is to try to finish or at least clean up what the baby boomers couldn't, and at the same time keep Gen X and the millennials and Gen Z from killing each other.
right, because we see that.
Absolutely, because they're not rooted. They've been born in an age of technology and integration, and they expect, a lot of them, they expect things to be easy. And when they're not easy, they tend to shift to temptation, and they glide towards easy solutions. They get into the drug trade, they get into the
Right.
street life. That crime is not, crime is kind of an optional thing. Whereas our generation, we know, you don't go to jail in your 20s and say, oh, I got plenty of time.
Right.
You know that that's going to follow you the rest of your life.
Exactly.
But our generation, we know what it's like to send an email and have it received instantly, but we also know what it's like to address an envelope and lick a stamp and wait 4 days.
Yes.
Okay, we have both of those experiences. Okay, so we're able to bridge the gap between these two generations, but we've got to recognize that we exist. And one of the best examples I can think of is during the Occupy movement back in like 2011 and whatnot, where basically, the young people, the Gen Xers and the millennials, they stood up and they said, we're going to sit in and we're going to demand change. And
Right.
of course, because we ambassadors didn't realize that we were a generation, their parents, the ambassadors, were home holding down the jobs, keeping the dishes washed, keeping the car running, and cheering the kids on. That's right, you guys, go for it. Okay.
Power to the people.
There you go. And they didn't realize that all these young people, what that was a gigantic army for change that was begging for leadership.
Right.
And the generals never showed up. So as soon as winter came along, the powers that be just said, let them sit out there. When they get cold, they'll go home. And that's exactly what happened.
Right. When I was reading the book, man, and again, I really appreciate you sharing it with me. It
Mm-hmm.
helped me, it gave me clarity.
Al, I'm glad to hear it.
And when I did my live yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
I told people this is a book that it's not a long read.
Nope.
I read almost 3/4 of it
Mm-hmm.
church because it would just flow.
Priority 1 message coming in on secured channel.
All right, everybody knows now that I'm a big Star Trek fan. All my alerts.
Oh yeah.
Star Trek. I've got a priority 1 message, so I'll have to talk to Admiral Kirk in the Delta Quadrant later.
Absolutely.
One of the big takeaways I got from it was because music is a big thing in my life. I looked at the songs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna pull that up right quick because I want to reference that.
Summer of '78.
Oh man, that was an awesome time.
Mm-hmm.
We came in at a time when rap music. It was at the very beginnings.
That's right.
And it was all about having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
And life was good, and it was good for us.
That's right. Well, we had been through the Vietnam War,
right?
And by 1975, the Vietnam War pretty much was done. Then we got Jimmy Carter into the White House, and we started to feel like somebody might actually care whether working folks lived or died.
Right.
And by the time '78 came along, we're ready to start graduating high school, and we're optimistic. We're looking forward to a brave new world, and the music just hit in '78. And this was right before the Sugar Hill Gang brought rap into the scene in '79, '80.
I graduated in '81. I remember. I'll never forget. That was the year that they made Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday
holiday.
And everybody, we were riding to school and we were playing that song that Stevie Wonder made.
Happy birthday to you.
Good, but some of these other songs I saw, like you say, Flashlight, Groove Line, Used to Be My Girl, Jack and Jill with Ray Parker. Love Ray Parker. And after I saw this list, man, I'm not gonna lie, I went back to my music service and kind of pulled up those songs and just listened.
Man.
Serpentine Fire. La Freak, Say She, I was loving that stuff,
Okay. Well, like I said in the book, try to go through that list and keep from smiling.
I know.
You're smiling now.
And then the artists that were born at that time.
Prince, Michael Jackson.
Yeah, Michael Jackson, Prince, which I'm a huge Prince fan.
Aren't we all? Whitney Houston.
Michael, Tears for Fears. I know. Now, I used to listen to Tears for Fears. People are like, why are you listening to that white music? It ain't white music. It's good music.
It's good music. Exactly.
Or Janet Jackson, Will Smith, Sade. People don't realize the legacy of that time.
Absolutely.
How it influenced us in so many ways, because even now, I know a lot of that music, these current artists, whether it's rap or whatever, they like to sample from that stuff because it was
sampled it to death.
And like I said, that had a huge impact when I was reading the book, and just looking, and also your what's the word? Here I am. I'm an older guy, so I sometimes I have a brain fart. But using the chess piece, because I'm a big chess player.
Excellent.
And the knight as the symbol for the generation was. I mean, that was awesome. I love that.
We refuse to be blocked. We refuse to be stopped.
Exactly.
And
super powerful.
That's right.
Than some of the other pieces. And for you chess players, I know you understand that. And if you don't play chess, you need to
learn,
because it's and here's that little history about chess. Chess was a game that it originated out of Africa. I can't remember whether it was Carthage. They taught this game to the Romans and other societies to teach them basic battle strategy.
That's right.
And again, that lends back to the power of people of color. We have always been at the forefront. We have always been leaders, but that history has been suppressed, just like this history we're talking about in the 60s, because Generation X and previous, the latter generations, they don't remember.
They're not aware. Yeah, and if we don't tell them, nobody will.
Exactly.
You know, and so what I really like to bring into this, and I want to make sure that we don't overlook this with this conversation, is our most famous ambassador of all. His name is Barack Hussein Obama.
Exactly.
Okay. Now I actually heard Barack answer the question when they were asking him what generation he was from. And this is how I try to help people decide, am I a part of the ambassador generation or not? Right. Ask yourself these three things that Barack Obama actually handled on stage one time. Do you consider yourself a baby boomer? And if your answer is, no, my parents are baby boomers, then the next question is, do you consider yourself a Gen Xer? Okay. And if you say, no, my kids are Gen Xers.
Right.
Then the third question is, then what are you? And suddenly you realize there's a gap.
Right.
There's something there that we haven't been told, and when you think of the accomplishments that we've put into place without even knowing that we're a generation, okay, or like I say in the book, fighting like ninja sword fighters in the dark, okay, we think we think we're the only ones, but by God, the battle has to be won anyway.
Exactly.
So we keep fighting, and we don't realize there's tens of millions of us out here. So part of what I consider my mission in this life is to start letting our folks at this age, in this generation, to get them to realize we are a generation and we have a mission, we have a duty, we have a role to play in moving this society forward. Because a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, and once you break that link, you reduce the effectiveness of the chain. Okay, so we are a small link, but a powerful link and a vital link in making sure that this world and this civilization moves forward in a smooth and non-war impacted way, if at all possible.
Yeah, exactly. The main focus when I shared your book, my wife and I, we talk a lot about, of course, for people of color. And if you're not a person of color, it's okay. We'll include you too.
Absolutely. Takes all of us.
It lends to the power of family. And
exactly.
Black families. Our power base has always been family, from like we talked about earlier today, from chattel slavery to Reconstruction to Jim Crow, all the way to the Civil Rights Movement. Always been a family. We struggled together. We raised our children together. Everybody, that old adage, it takes a village to raise a child. That's what
Hillary was right.
And that's the truth. And it doesn't matter what race you are. This is the paradigm or the blueprint that we should follow. So bringing that all together. I mean, this book definitely will get you to understand the importance of those things, bridging the gap from old school values to new technology. We can use our values to implant and impart those values using new technology. And that's one of the big takeaways I got from this book.
I'm so glad. And you're absolutely right. When you look at it through the lens of family, there's when you just look at the civil rights movement and the integration movement, especially school integration in the 50s and 60s, we tend to look at it in sound bites on TV, and we just see individuals. And part of what I try to shed light on in this thing is that these were families. These were families that put their children on the front lines.
Right. Okay? You and me.
Exactly. And it wasn't like we had a choice in a lot of ways, but we did recognize that it was on our shoulders to make that whole experiment succeed or fail. And by and large, we made it succeed. Okay. Yeah. It's just that nobody came along and patted us on the back and said, oh, you guys did a really good job with that whole integration experiment. Didn't happen. We just had to get to work,
Exactly. In your history, you integrated 4 schools. I only did 1, but 1 was enough.
One's enough, exactly. And you usually hear about it in a Southern context, and so I kind of want to bring other folks into the conversation. You realize all over the North, integration happened as well. Exactly. Okay, it's just we didn't get the TV cameras. Because the South got kind of saddled with that reputation. Oh, that problem down South. It was a problem nationwide.
No doubt. in this country is they talk about systemic racism. It's real. Some people don't want to believe it, but it is real. It happened all over this country, and people like you and me, we carried that. That was our part that we played. Like you said, we were too young to actively participate. Right? But because of the civil rights movement, we were there in the trenches, so to speak, doing what the work that our parents had done before us,
and feeling the effects.
Forget, like I said, I went to this school. I was the first Black student ever to go there. I'm sugarcoating a little bit. It was an experience, and it was unpleasant.
Exactly.
But it was necessary because things did change, and things.
And it gave us tremendous skills and abilities. I've talked to brothers in the inner city who have said things to me like, well, I never go downtown. I don't go in those buildings.
Right.
And they don't realize while they're fighting and dying to control a corner or a block, they don't realize the real money is not made in the streets. The money is made in exchange in the buildings that sit on the streets.
Exactly.
See, but if you don't have the wherewithal to be able to put on a shirt and tie or something appropriate and walk into a building and have a meeting, you'll never really realize what you're missing out on.
Exactly.
Okay. And we were given that. We have that ability. Yeah. We can go anywhere and fit into any environment. Yeah. And that's a wonderful blessing.
It's funny, you talk about that. I remember, and we're on here about 22 minutes, so we're gonna be too much longer. But I want to tell this story. Back in the 90s when we had the Rodney King incident, I was in college at that time, and of course, when the verdict came out, everybody was upset. I was upset, and there were a lot of people who were very vocal about what they wanted to do. And I remember this brother; he was like, "Well, I'm gonna go to the mall and I'm gonna punch the first white person I see." And I'm like, "Brother, what's that gonna do?"
For what?
And he even questioned, he said to me, "Well, do you know what it's like to be Black?" And I'm like, okay, just because I'm a light-skinned brother and I had hair back then, and my hair was kind of fair. I'm like, don't believe that white folks don't break us up into blocks.
No, they don't.
If they're prejudiced, like you're a brown skin N-word, I'm a light skin N-word. They don't do that.
No.
But those kinds of things, is some of, because he didn't even know the history of what I went through. He didn't know that I was one of those kids that went to the first Black kid to go to an all-white school.
And they didn't back off because you was light skinned.
Yeah, and had he known it, he might have a different opinion of me. Me not thinking about myself in terms of this ambassador generation. I didn't even know to try to impart that to him.
Exactly.
So much for writing this book. And guys, now if you are interested in picking up a copy of this book, Lance, tell us where we can pick that up.
Absolutely. ambassadorgeneration.com. That's ambassadorgeneration.com, and that's available in print format, ebook, as well as audio.
All right, cool. And also, if people want to connect with you on a more personal level, is there some place where they connect with you on Facebook or YouTube?
Absolutely.
Or whatever?
Absolutely. Lance T. Walker. I'm on Facebook. I do have various YouTube accounts as well, but the best way probably to reach me would be, let's say, Lance at lancetwalker.com.
Great. Well, brother, I appreciate you coming on and sharing this information. I'm sure that it's gonna change some folks. Guys, pick up the book. I'm telling you, it is a game changer. It's gonna change the way you think about things, because I know it changed me. Especially us who were born in that time frame from
60s kids
to 1969, and we have a mission that we didn't even realize. A lot of us didn't even realize that we could affect change.
Exactly.
We have so much going on in this country that's, everybody's upset. We got shootings and we got kids who don't act right and all these kinds of things. Well, the only way this is going to change is if we change it.
That's right.
We're the ones,
And we have the ultimate tool. It's called the internet.
Exactly. The world has gotten so much smaller. We live in a global community now. You can affect change on a global scale. So Let's use this technology, use this knowledge, buy the book.
AmbassadorGeneration.com.
Amen. Amen. Well, we're going to end it the same way we started, with a little music. Now, if you are a business owner and you would like to come on my broadcast, I'm always willing to interview people. I believe that my success is tied directly to the people that are helping serve. So if you're interested in something like that, put what we're going to do. We're going to do #broadcast. Put that in the comments. I'll reach out to you and we will get you on the show. But like I said, we are going to start the same way that we started. Come on, speaker. Work for me, baby. There we go. Now we got a little baby.
There we go.
Again, we appreciate you, Lance, for coming on and sharing this information with us. If you're interested in coming on the podcast, again, we appreciate you, man. Look, remember my 3 R's. Respect yourself. Respect others. Always take full responsibility for your actions. All right, we'll see you next Monday at 7 p.m. Later.
All right, JL.
Well,